Hello, my friends. This is Lynda Lippin, and welcome to the Pilates Goddess podcast. Well, hello once again. It's Lynda Lippin here, your host of the Pilates Goddess podcast. And today's topic is one that's near and dear to my heart. And this topic is simply Pilates is a system. And you may wonder what I mean by that and why I think that's so important. And I'm going to start out by giving you a few examples of, recent interactions that I've had with other Pilates teachers, whether they are new Pilates teachers or experienced teachers, and how I can tell the ones who were comprehensively trained as opposed to folks who only learned mat or only learned reformer. And I can also tell, frankly, who certified in a program where they didn't have a lot of interaction with live clients, with the people teaching their program, and with other experienced teachers and other trainees that they could powwow with, ask questions, student teach, and have those kinds of interactions. These things are crucially important to you as a trainee and as a new Pilates teacher. And without them, you basically are going to find yourself kind of thrown into a world of professional group exercise or one-on-one exercise with clients that have certain expectations, and you may not always feel prepared to meet those expectations. And know that this isn't your fault, frankly. There is no Pilates teacher training, certification, or teacher support program or network that should be allowing their graduates to walk around being completely unsure about what they're doing or about how to progress people safely and move people forward safely. And I've seen, a few posts and a few questions and a few discussions online recently that have really concerned me, frankly, which is why I'm bringing this episode to the forefront today. So number one, even though Joseph Pilates did develop the mat exercises first, okay, and we know this, that he developed the mat work while he was interned, as an enemy alien during the First World War on the Isle of Man. But very soon thereafter, he started developing apparatus work. Some of it was born by necessity because he was working with people who had been wounded or injured during the war, and some were in wheelchairs, some were still in hospital beds. And if you look at the current Cadillac or trapeze table and you take away what we know of as the base, throw a hospital bed on there and put a big frame around it with straps and springs, you can see where the Cadillac came from. If you take a look at a wheelchair, but then you add some apparatus around it, including springs and other things, then you can see the seated pedipole, you can see the Pilates high chair, and you can see the baby armchair and how these all might have come to be. And ultimately, when Joe Pilates developed the apparatus, he partly developed it to assist people who might be having a really hard time doing the mat work. He also, developed it because it was a creative time just in the world. And he was an inventor. He was a creative type. He was constantly thinking of new and better ways of doing things and new and better ways of working with the human body and getting it strong and flexible and lengthened and well adapted to life, right? One of my favorite phrases, and my old boss and my colleague Alicia Angaro at Real Pilates uses the same phrase, is that Pilates is cross training for life. Whatever else it is you want to do in life, Pilates can help you do it and help you do it very well. But there are places where I can see in the questions people ask and in the answers people give that the sense of the entirety of the Pilates system is being missed. And I'm sad about that because number one, it makes it harder for teachers to teach. You may think, well, I don't have to learn as many exercises or as many things or as many pieces of equipment, so it will be simpler. But it's really not, because you will then only say have one idea of where an exercise is done or what it looks like, when there are many possibilities for where one could do that exercise, including on the mat or just standing on the floor. There are also some series that come up in classical Pilates that a lot of other more contemporary iterations of Pilates just don't teach. Some of them have just fallen away, like the standing footwork, the 2x4 work, the wall work, a lot of reformer on the mat, which can be done in numerous ways, work with small hand weights. And so I digress a little, but here are some examples of where I see the kind of parsing and separation of Pilates into pieces of equipment or different things is kind of harming, I think, the world of Pilates, how it's viewed by the public, and the actual teachers who are paying, 4 and 5 figures to learn this system and to teach it, and who should be learning how to teach and getting some support. So I saw a question the other day about mat work, and it was mat work in a class. And this particular client that the teacher was asking about has severe scoliosis. And so it is very difficult for her to be on her stomach. And she has arthritic knees, and so isn't really comfortable kneeling. And the question simply was, if I'm having the rest of the class do just some upper body extension on their stomachs, or maybe a mini swan or a single leg kick, what can I do for this woman who can't be on her stomach comfortably and can't be on her knees? And my answer was simply just get her to stand up and have her do like a standing version of chest expansion and maybe some standing arm circles while everybody else is doing the other stuff when they're on their stomachs. And a few hours later, I checked, and one response that I had was, "Oh, you mean standing chest expansion on the reformer?" And another teacher had responded to that and said, no, 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 she must mean standing chest expansion using the arm springs on the spring wall or the tower. Now, this is what's very interesting to me about this whole discussion, is that number one, the question was specifically about a mat class. So my answer was specifically about a mat class. But then what I realized is that, say you're only mat and reformer trained and certified, and you're not really familiar with the other places where you could do chest expansion. in a Pilates studio. In other words, you could do it standing by a spring wall or the Cadillac or tower, using arm springs or using the rollback bar. You can do it standing at the pedipole. You can also do it standing using light hand weights. It is part of the standing weight series. There's several places where you can do this that have nothing to do with the reformer. But if you only know mat and reformer, then you see chest expansion, the name of the exercise, and you are immediately thinking, how could I possibly do that if it's not kneeling, sitting, or standing on a reformer? Whereas I saw that the question was about mat and thought that the answer should, be clear that it was about mat. And then standing arm circles, the question was the same. Oh, like the kneeling front-facing arm circles or reverse chest expansion on the reformer. No, just standing up and doing some arm circles, keeping the spine lifted, maybe, stretching up into both sides so we get a little of the convex and concave, moving a little bit, and just working her, in a long standing posture. And I realized that, you had somebody who was only familiar with spring wall, maybe a club Pilates teacher, because they don't always learn like the full Cadillac, depending on the studio that they're in. They are fine with knowing reformer and knowing spring wall and knowing some chair, in Bozu and TRX and Magic Circle, say. So there's that. Then I saw another question where somebody was asking, I'm starting to plan beginner, intermediate, and advanced reformer classes. What exercises should I be giving people to make it appropriate to the level? And once again, I thought to myself, where is the support from your teacher training? Where is the support from the apprenticeship? Where is the support from the other teachers that came with you in your program? Like, where is that? But further, didn't your program separate the exercises into beginning, intermediate, and advanced and show you how to layer in new exercises so that people could progress in a safe and effective way? Because your teacher training is supposed to teach you that. So I am in no way, shape, or form blaming these teachers, because they spent a lot of time and money getting trained to teach Pilates, but apparently they were not trained in Pilates as a full system, number one. But most concerning, number two, were not necessarily trained in how to separate the exercises into beginning, intermediate, and advanced groupings. And, you have some that are beginner to intermediate. And of course, you have a section of intermediate to advanced that are some exercises that are a little bit harder, but kind of bridge into the more advanced movements. Now, I'm not sure how teacher training programs are being accredited in any way that aren't actually sending teachers out who know how to teach bodies. I've had several discussions about this with Alan Menezes from the Australia side of the Pilates world, and he sees the same thing there. He sees a lot of teachers who are going through programs that are teaching all of the apparatus separately. So each thing is seen as separate and not as part of the whole Pilates system. What's interesting is that once you know the whole system, then it becomes really easy to use props and bring other things in, right? So say I'm teaching in a studio that only has chairs and maybe a TRX and some bands or tubing. Fine. No problem. Because I can put somebody, say, standing on the tubing with their hands in the handles, and we can do standing footwork while we do some work with the arms. Or I can put them on their backs and put the band around their feet and have them do supine footwork, reformer on the mat, using the bands for a little bit of assistance and resistance, if that's what I want to do. Okay. Then maybe I can bring them up to the chair and maybe they're doing the roll down on the chair with the arm presses, right? Maybe instead of doing swan on the mat, if that's not really comfortable, I bring them to doing a version of swan on the chair. Since I have a TRX, okay, then maybe instead of doing the rowing work that I might do with them on the reformer, I'm doing some version of rowing in a reverse plank using the TRX. See where I'm going with this? Maybe I don't have the reformer, but I want to do some supported jumping and jump board like work with this client. And so maybe I'm going to use the TRX for that and allow them to pull off the TRX a little bit and get those jumps in. So what I want you to start to think is, oh, if I know the whole system, then it's not going to be as hard for me to figure out modifications or variations or what to do with a client who can't lie down on their stomach, what to do with a client who can't lay down on their back, what to do with a client who's, having knee pain and can't kneel, because you're always going to have another option at hand. But if you only learned, say, kneeling chest expansion or seated chest expansion as an exercise done on the reformer, and no one brought that through for you, because you wouldn't necessarily make these connections yourself, right? It's taken me 34 years of teaching to make a lot of these connections. But you want to start to think like, what movements are like this? What exercises are like this? What else looks like this position that I would like this person to be in, but they can't do it in the specific relationship to gravity and resistance that the exercise requires? And knowing the whole system will kind of allow you to figure that out, right? Because then you'll think, oh, okay, I can also do this exercise over there. And I bet that if I could just do it with spring standing, maybe if I, attach tubing to a wall anchor, my client can do it there. Or she could just stand up super tall in really great posture, press her arms behind her, lift her chest, turn her head side to side, getting length, and then exhale and relax for a second before she does it again. Knowing and understanding the system of Pilates, whether you are teaching the full system all the time or not, is, I believe, really crucial to your ease and success as a Pilates teacher moving forward in the world. Because then it's not so much of an issue if you don't have access to all of the equipment. It's not so much of an issue if you don't have access to the equipment that you know. And there are many exercises that I can think of, footwork being one, that can be done in so many ways, in so many places outside of the reformer and the chair. Okay, that will still be extremely useful for your client. And once you also get the basic rules of variation and modification, I mean, there are only so many ways you can modify an exercise, right? You can increase assistance, which sometimes means increasing resistance. Okay, taking away resistance doesn't always make things easier, especially in Pilates land. You can close the kinetic chain, right? By putting the foot in a strap, by using bands or tubing, anything like that, by putting them into standing. You can shorten the range of motion, reduce the range of motion, and you can shorten the levers by bringing the legs or the arms closer to the body, closer to the powerhouse. And that's about it. Like all modifications, do those. Do something in that list. So once you understand that and you understand the system, then it becomes really easy to make things a little bit easier or a little bit harder, or to layer new exercises in. It's not that you're putting everyone in a box and saying you are only going to do these, official Pilates beginner series exercises. But having the structure of that and then knowing what the full intermediate system looks like then allows you to bridge things in and bring things in. For example, if you learn Pilates in the full system, you will learn chest expansion on the tower or Cadillac before you learn chest expansion on the reformer. Now, why is that? Well, if you've ever taught or done chest expansion on the reformer, you know it's super hard. Clients often fall. They don't fall all the way off. Usually they just tip forward from the hip. They come off balance a little bit. There's a lot going on in that exercise. So we don't do it on the moving platform first, right? We do it on a non-moving platform with a static spring. If folks can't kneel, they stand. And they do it that way. And again, you can also do it many other places within the studio and within the system. If you would like to know more about teaching Pilates, more about being in a supportive environment for Pilates teachers where you have people around you to answer your questions, people around you like me with a good knowledge base that can answer your questions well, okay, and appropriately, I invite you to join me in Pilates Teacher Mastermind VIP. This group program starts in March. And in the program, you are going to have all the support and all the education that will help you get a better understanding of Pilates as a system, get a better understanding of what the exercises are, what they're supposed to do, and a better understanding of how to teach these exercises wherever you are, on the mat, with props, at home, on any of the apparatus, so that you and your clients can then benefit from having a deeper knowledge of the exercises, a deeper knowledge of the system, a deeper knowledge of anatomy, and a deeper knowledge of what our clients are trying to get out of their Pilates work with us and how we can get our clients to their goals. I would love to help you get to your goal of becoming a more confident, more engaging, and more marketable Pilates teacher in 2023. So head on over to PilatesTeacherMastermind.com and take a look at the program. We are in pre-launch right now, but if you register now at the pre-launch pricing, you will get immediate access to all of the trainings and workshops that I taught for the last 2 years in Pilates Teacher Mastermind VIP. Okay, starting in March, we are on a new track. We are in a new program, but you will still have access to the 100+ hours of videos and trainings in the original VIP program. So once again, head over to PilatesTeacherMastermind.com or just go to LyndaLippin.com and click on Pilates Teachers. And I look forward to seeing you in Pilates Teacher Mastermind VIP. Thank you so much for listening. If you love the podcast, I would love it if you would go to the Apple Podcast app or iTunes or Spotify and leave a rating and, if you would, a written review. The links to all of these places are in the show notes, and I will talk to you guys soon. Thanks for listening. Thank you so much for listening to the Pilates Goddess podcast. Music brought to you by Nerd Salad. Please leave a review on Apple Podcasts, especially if you liked it. And please like, share, and subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts. Thanks.